So, all right. Thanks everybody for joining me this morning. My name is Alicia Ramberg. I'm the Director of Instructional Design and Professional Development Coordinator at Horry Georgetown Technical College. And I also teach in the English department, mainly online now, but so I have a faculty role as well. That's actually where I started as a full-time faculty member. And so, today we're going to be talking about rubrics, and we're going to have some kind of fun participation activities as we go. And I'm actually using Nearpod for this presentation. So I don't know how many of you may have used that before, but it's kind of a cool tool as well, where, you take your PowerPoint slides or you put them in here. Or you can create them within here as well. And then you can add activities as you go through it. So this is great for using either in a classroom or for virtual activities. And so, and this is actually my first time using it in a virtual presentation. So hopefully everything goes smoothly and all that good stuff. So if you want to play along and participate, all you have to do is go to any browser. I was saying before we start is I like to use a different device like my phone to do this. So you can kind of follow along there and also be watching the screen at the same time and see the slides as you go. What's really cool is when you do this and you join, you will also see the slides on whatever device you're on as well. So you can follow along that way, and there will be the collaboration pieces as we go through that as well. So, all right. So let's go ahead and get started. Like I said, I'll leave this up for just one more minute before we jump into it. This code will actually remain up at the top of the slides as we go through the presentation, but it's just that website, that join.nearpod.com, that you want to make sure you grab. And then it'll prompt you for a code, ask you to put in your name, and then we'll be off and running. So like I said, there's that code. It's join.nearpod.com. And let's go ahead and get started. And we're going to start first and foremost with an activity here. So what I'm going to ask you to do here is just answer this question that you see. And so if you're following along on Nearpod, you should have a box at the bottom. And the question is, what are the advantages to using rubrics? We're talking about rubrics today. So what do you see as some of those advantages? And if you just click down here and type your answer in, we'll start seeing people's collaborative responses here as we go. All right, great. Transparency for students, fantastic. Easy feedback, less subjective grading. Yes, anything that saves me grading time, I am all for. Removes bias, fantastic. All of these are excellent points. Easier to grade for sure. Yes, knowing what to expect. That goes for both you and for the students, right? They know what to expect. You know what you're looking for, kind of, and that's back to Mary Helen's point of transparency, right? And removing that bias. Very straightforward. When I was in grad school and studying English, I did have, some instructors, and there are probably still some now that, would give you your paper back, your essay back, and it says, B-, good job. Well, what is a B- exactly, right? So it's very sort of, and how did you come to that conclusion? Where did I lose points or whatever? So it's very helpful to have this rubric to say, yes, students can see what will be graded before they turn in the assignment. It's fantastic. So I'm going to make that point in a little bit as well, and the importance of giving them that rubric in advance. I have known some faculty in the past who will do the assignment and then go and create the rubric later, right? Like, okay, now I'm ready to grade it. I'll create this rubric. And it's like, ooh, I don't, you need to create it beforehand so students know exactly what they're graded on. All right, and good for self-assessment too. That's a great point, Mary Helen. I love to use it for peer review for English papers, when we're doing essays, to do it for a peer review process. So, all right, fantastic, guys. Thank you so much. Let's keep going. These are all excellent points, and you pretty much covered this slide for me, so we really don't have to go through this in detail. But this is exactly what you guys just all said in the collaboration there. It helps you objectively evaluate students' work. And this is helpful both for them and for you, of course, right? So they don't have to ask any questions about, hey, what did I lose points on, or I don't understand what my grade is. Students get more detailed feedback, right? And it makes it easier for you to give that feedback in many cases without having to leave those extensive comments. And I would guess a couple of you who talked about the easier and quicker grading probably have graded essays either in English or other disciplines before, because that is where, just reading the entire essay can be so time consuming. And then you're assessing it, and then you still have to somehow formulate the feedback to give to them. So rubrics can help a great deal with that. And like I said, anything that saves me grading time, I am all for. And then as we know too, we sort of touched on this, but it gives you a point of reference when a student questions their grade. What I saw a lot of at first when I was doing my grad school teaching, and like I said, I had some instructors who were saying, yeah, why don't you grade this on a letter scale? Like give them an A, a B minus, or whatever. And, so students come back and say, why did I get this grade? And I don't remember what I did 2 weeks ago when I graded your paper. I have absolutely no idea what I took points off for. But if there's a rubric and I can say, yeah, let's sit down and look at your paper and your rubric together, then I can pinpoint and go, oh, I see where you lost points. It was for grammar. It was for, misquoting or whatever, without having to go all the way back through the paper and try to find that out. So I very quickly abandoned the letter grade, kind of mentality that I think existed many years ago. And now we mostly do points, and then this idea of like, here's a rubric, and we can check the things that you need to work on, improve, and also the things that you did really well, so you know what to do again for future essays. All right, so just quick terminology for this as we go through and talk about, because what we're going to do throughout this presentation, we're going to talk about some things involving creating rubrics, like some things to keep in mind when creating the criteria and the levels here, and what you want to think about with those. And then we're actually going to look at building a rubric in D2L, and that's the LMS that we use. I know many of you probably use D2L as well, but every LMS pretty much has this some kind of rubrics tool in it. But we'll look at how to create that and how you can attach it to an assignment and very easily give students that feedback that we're talking about. So just kind of a quick recap, and these are the terms that not only that we use, but also that D2L uses. So that's why I sort of like want to cover it real quick, is like, these are the terminology, because that's what you'll see in there. And I work with faculty on the instructional design aspect. So sometimes I get questions when they're like, well, what do they mean when they say criteria and levels? And so when we use those, the criteria is what you're actually grading, right? So in a typical rubric, you see that on like the left, kind of side, like here's everything that we're going to grade on this assignment. And then the levels are the levels, right? Like how well they accomplish each criterion. And so you can have as many criteria, as many levels, and all of that you need. And then of course, we're going to associate each one with points to say, this is how much this is weighting towards this, assignment grade or whatever it is. So those are, again, quick recap of the terms here that we're going to look at. All right, and we are going to focus on like point-based or analytic rubrics, if you will. We'll talk a little bit about holistic rubrics when we look at the D2L template for creating those. But realistically, we're talking about analytic rubrics. I think most of us use that because we're using it for an actual grade. So there are points assigned, and we're making sure that students know exactly how their grade was calculated and all of that. A holistic rubric would be where you're really not giving them a grade. It's just giving them some general feedback, which, I mean, you could use. I've known some fellow English faculty who have used that for drafts before, like collecting essay drafts. It's not for a grade. So they don't really want to put points to it. I have actually found it more effective to just go ahead and give them some kind of points and use the real rubric, that I'm going to use. But anyways, that is an option that you have there too. But in terms of the points-based or the analytic rubrics, there are two kinds of types that we have for design formatting of it. And so you can have one that's description-based, and we're going to look at examples of each of these. But you can have one that's description-based, where the category, the criterion is just the category that it fits, like grammar, right? Or content or whatever. And then each level has a detailed description on what the student needs to do to earn the points for that level, right? For that criterion. Then you can have a criterion-based one where your criteria is very detailed, like it outlines, here's exactly what I'm looking for in this. And then there's no description, or maybe a very brief description for each level. And that's because you don't need that full description, because you have put it all in the criteria explanation instead. So we're looking at a quick example of each of these. So here's one that would be what I'm calling description based here. So you see on the left here are categories that we're assessing here. We've got format, and we've got the design of the document, and then we've got content, language, and grammar, right? So we just have those categories there for the three, kind of main criteria that we're looking for, main elements. And then each of the levels there has a detailed description of what the student needs to do to accomplish that level. So to get for your format to be excellent, it has to, and you can read the description perfectly, right? Follow memo format, everything required. And it's outlining the specific expectations of that level, right? For that criterion. So this would be description based. Sometimes though, what I run into myself is I don't have a good description really for each level. Like I would rather just tell them these are the expectations of this criteria, and then outline what they need to do, to meet that all at once. And that's where this criteria-based or criterion-based one comes into play, because you see here, we don't have descriptions at each level, we just have points, but the explanation or the criterion for each one is very detailed. So instead of just saying original response and then having 4 different descriptions for each level, then instead we have, this is what I expect from the original response. It needs prompt answers, or answers each question, detailed, and demonstrates comprehension. And then we can, say, how well you did on that is on this scale of these levels or whatever. So again, 2 different types, and it can totally depend on your assignment, which type you want to use or what's going to work the best. But, I'm going to leave you a loaded question here, and we'll hide everybody's names, and we'll just make it fun here. So you should be seeing the question now: which type of rubric do you use, or do you think you'll use most often? So if you're following along in the Nearpod, you can answer this quickly, whether it's description based or criterion based. I see a criterion based one there. We'll give it just a minute. There's some description based. 50-50 right now, right? And I know that it varies. I use both like all the time in my classes. So this is definitely a loaded question, to say which one will you use most often? And some people prefer one to the other, and it just depends, in a lot of cases. But so we'll give this just a few more seconds if you're following along. I see it's like 3-2, so it's really close to your description based and criterion based. And there certainly are advantages to each. The description based, of course, you have all those details on each level already, which makes it very easy to give feedback really for each level, because it's already there. When you say, what, you did good on this, you didn't do excellent, the description already says exactly what they did or where the issue might potentially be as to why they didn't get that excellent level, so it's kind of already built in there. But then when I get into some other things, like for me to, teaching English and we're working on essays, the thesis statement, I have the same general expectations regardless of the essay we're working on. So I like the criterion base because I can explain that thesis statement does these things, and I can just tweak it for each different assignment as I go. So, it just varies depending on your needs and all of that. So, all right. So pretty close here. I mean, description based, pulled out one more here as we go. So, all right. Now we're going to spend some time on this. Let's talk about these tips for creating effective rubrics. Some of this you guys already kind of noted it when we talked about the advantages of rubrics. But as we said, creating the rubric before or with the assignment sheet is very important. So you want to know what you're assessing before you start teaching that unit, right? I mean, this assists with your classroom instruction, and it gives students guidance. When you hand them the assignment sheet, hand them the rubric at the same time. Here's what I am grading you on, and let's, kind of look at it together or whatever. The rubric should reflect and reinforce the guidelines you have put on the assignment sheet. And it's okay if there's repetition there. That's kind of a question I get sometimes, where it's like, well, I said in the assignment sheet, their thesis statement needs to do X, Y, and Z. Do I really need to say that in the rubric as well? Sure, why not? I mean, it's okay to reinforce those elements that are really, really important to you. So that's what I usually do. My assignment sheets say these are the expectations. And sometimes I may not even put as much on the assignment sheet, to be honest with you. I'll just say, we're looking at what was discussed in class about, essay structure and this kind of thing. Please see the rubric for the specific expectation of how your grade, is going to be broken down or whatever. And then, what I have really found helpful in an in-class situation, I haven't done this as much in person, but only because of the kind of the nature of what I'm teaching now. But But in class, when I used to teach, especially that like freshman English 101, I would actually take the rubric, I'd make copies in class, hand them out to them in groups, right? Give them a sample essay and make them use the rubric to grade that sample essay, right? Because very quickly they start having questions. What do you mean by a hook in the introduction paragraph? Okay, so you don't remember what we talked about, right, with that. So it's very helpful for me to know what they're struggling with, what they don't understand, what we need to go back over. And then what I like to do too, and this does take some class time, but what I like to do is have them, analyze it, review it, grade it, and then we go over it together as a class. So I'll pull the sample essay up on the, on the board, and we'll walk through it, look at the thesis statement. Let's break it down to why it's good or not as good or whatever. So it helps them really, get into the rubric because they have to use it. So kind of forcing them to use it. And then, as I said earlier, I like to kind of flip that on them in a fun way when we do peer review. And so they come to class and, they bring their drafts or whatever, and I hand out, some questions and then copies of the rubric. And I'm like, I need you to, mark where they did well, and then circle or highlight or whatever the areas that they need to work on, so they can have a quick snapshot of, where their peers think that their strongest and weakest points of the essay are. So, so creating it, and like I said this earlier, but I've seen some faculty who create the assignment first, teach the unit, and then create the rubric when they're ready to grade it. But really, you want to have that all done at one time, because that helps, again, you with your classroom instruction, helps the students know from day one what is expected of them as they work on the particular assignment. And I know I'm talking about essays a lot because that's because I teach English and that's what I use them primarily for. But rubrics are not just for essays, and we're going to see that as we get into more of this. But you can use rubrics for discussion posts in an online class, for informal assignments, sort of homework activities, any of that kind of stuff. So you can use it for any sort of type of assignment you have. And as when we get into D2L, what we'll see is it lets you attach a rubric. And once you've built it in that system, you can attach it to any of those activities. So it's not just for essays, not just for like the Dropbox tool. You can use it for a variety of purposes. So don't take my English examples as meaning that's the only, kind of, use of them. So, all right, a couple of things to keep in mind. These next two are the ones that I struggled with the most. So select the appropriate amount of criteria. So we know that we're trying to assess a lot when we do these major assignments, whether that's an essay, whether that's a presentation, some type of big assignment. We want to see their knowledge on everything that we've covered in that unit. But sometimes that can be overwhelming to the students, and also honestly to us when we're trying to grade that and to say, like you have this huge rubric and you're trying to assess not only their grammar, but also their thesis, but also, and all of this stuff. And then also how well they use language and their sentence structure and some advanced things like that. So what I always say is like, try to focus on the most important aspects of the assignment. It's really hard to assess everything at once. And when you need to do that, I mean, as I do, like I said, in English, I mean, I'm assessing all of those things at once. I try to weight the areas that are most, I guess, important, if you will, like where their thesis statement might be worth 5 or 10 points out of a 100-point essay, but their content, their support, their development of ideas might be worth like 50 points. So that's, half their grade is in what I'm seeing is the most important aspect, which is how well they've developed their ideas. And this helps students identify as well what they need to work on the most. And I make sure I point this out to them when we look at the rubric together, where I say, look, okay, yeah, so your introduction, you only got a good on, from your peer. They said you could work on that. I said, but that's only out of 10 or 15 points. You know what I mean? You're only losing 2 or 3 points if you get good instead of excellent. Perhaps we should look at your content where you've also been marked good, but that means you're losing, like 15 points or whatever. So I try to point that out to them, that like focus not only on where your weaknesses are, but also how much those weaknesses are weighted, and work your way up from what's weighted the most to some of those smaller details there. So, trying to emphasize what is most important of the assignment. and of course, that unit and what you're trying to teach them. So trying to select the appropriate amount of criteria, and you can break it down into, you can certainly combine things, sort of try to make it easier so that rubrics are not overwhelming. You know, I've seen some rubrics that are like 2 and 3 pages long. We really want to try and avoid that as much as we can, because it's, you know, they look at that and they're like, whoa, how do I do all of this or whatever? So trying to kind of scale back where you can, combine some things, and, you know, you might build on it as the semester goes. What I try to do for essays in particular is use the exact same rubric for all of the essay assignments, but change the criteria description a little bit. So every single essay, I'm looking at their introduction, their thesis statement, their topic sentences, their content, you know, and that never changes on the rubric. But what does change is the description in that criterion. So just tweak it a little bit to say, in this essay, I expect this of the content or of the thesis statement. So that helps me kind of cover everything, but still leaves me the flexibility to tweak it a little bit as we go through the semester, and some aspects may be more important than others there. All right, select the appropriate amount of levels. You'll laugh at the rubric I'll show you in a minute, because it was one of mine, because this was my biggest mistake when I started teaching. And I had a colleague here in the English department, Chris Hefner, we were talking about rubrics and grading and all this stuff. And he said, yeah, I just don't understand these people, these crazy people who put like 10 levels on a rubric and use these terms like needs slight improvement, needs some improvement. I don't even understand. How do you decide what's a 5 and what's a 6 and all this? And I was like, Chris, that's what I do. What am I doing wrong? I said, oh no, you're talking about me. And he said, he's like, oh, that's so bad. You do not want to do that to yourself and stuff. So, you know, after that, I started thinking about it, and we looked at, and like I said, I'll show you the example in a minute. That's exactly what he was talking about. And he called me out on it. And I said, oh no, have I been overthinking this? I've been trying so hard to be very precise in my grading and stuff. And, he's like, yeah, you're overthinking it. So really, in terms of the levels that we're putting on there, you don't need really more than 4. I mean, I say that there are always exceptions to everything, but really like 3 to 4 is a good range. And Chris and I, same Chris, we actually kind of disagree on this one a little bit too. He likes 3 levels. He thinks 3 levels is the perfect amount, because he says, you're either doing it, you're kind of doing it, or you're not doing it at all. So those are sort of the, 3 levels there. Or things like yes, no, and somewhat, like if you're using something quick like that, and we'll see one where I actually have used that as well. So it can be effective in that way. I am a push for the 4 level range, because psychologically, we have a tendency to pick that middle range, like if we're not sure, it's like, nah, it's not perfect. So I guess I'll pick that middle range, and it's a lot easier to do. But if you have 2 middles, right, you have 2 middle ranges, if you will, you have to pick one of them, right? So they're, it splits it. They're either doing it a little better or a little worse than just straight in the middle. So the 4 kind of forces you, like I said, psychologically to make a little bit more of a decision there. So I'm a big fan of the 4 level rubric, but I've used 3 levels before as well. Anything more than that, though, you're really starting to complicate things for yourself and potentially for your students as well. So just some things to keep in mind. Phrases or terms to use for these levels. There's a whole variety out there. And one of the things, I've done this numerous times in the past, is just to Google sample rubrics for and insert your assignment, for essay, for presentation, for this, and see what is already out there in terms of not only levels, but then criteria, getting ideas from other people can be really helpful there. But some of the terms that I like to use now are things like excellent, good, acceptable, unacceptable, satisfactory, and if I do the 4 level one, which I pretty commonly do, I usually do excellent, good, satisfactory, and then poor or missing is my last one. Or sometimes I'll do unsatisfactory, as that last one. Plus, in my mind, the 4 level rubric also is closer to me to our grading scheme. If we do, we've got A, B, C, and then D or F, right? So, and I kind of lump the D and the F there together, because neither one is really passing. So So I think the 4 levels really fits that well. If it's excellent, you're at that A level on whatever that is. If it was the good, you're kind of at that B level. So that's sort of what I use. But there are some other like terms, and again, we'll see one in a minute, where you could simply say, thesis statement does this, and you say yes or no, or somewhat, and you kind of say, this is the information I want you to have on this. So selecting the appropriate amount of levels as well as criteria is really important for, like I said, not overwhelming your students, not overwhelming yourself, and making sure that it is something manageable that everyone can understand and work with. And make sure your students, of course, understand all the expectations in each of those criterions there. So, all right, being specific in your criteria description. This one gets a little challenging because, if you just say something like, your criteria says presentation skills. Do students know exactly what that means? I mean, and you said, well, yeah, we covered in class. That means eye contact, body language, their volume, their tone. Okay, so why not go ahead and put all of that on the rubric as well, right? Presentation skills, and you can even put in parentheses, eye contact, body language, whatever. So letting them know what the exact expectations are instead of just saying presentation skills or content, because it's like, well, what do you expect from the content? So you really want to include that and depending on which way you're using, that can be in the descriptions, right? Like, if you're using that description base, or in the criteria themselves, when you explain it in more detail, if it's criteria based. Either way, you want that description to be detailed enough to let them know exactly what they need to do. But here's where the challenge comes in, is you also need to leave yourself some flexibility so that you can have a little bit of wiggle room when you grade, right? So you don't want to put yourself into like a corner where, you're like, oh man, I didn't say the student had to do this, but I expected it. So, so there might be some kind of generic, vague terms you want to use. I mean, when you say things like presentation skills, like good eye contact, good body language, that leaves it up to you to say, here's where your body language was a little bit off. You were fidgeting, or you did this, or whatever. So, but if you say things like, body language, posture is always this, or when you're too specific, that can potentially backfire on you. So that there is a line, a fine line here to sort of keep that balance. But the important thing is to let your students know specifically what the categories mean. When you say presentation skills, when you say content, what are you looking for in their content, in their presentation skills? And my favorite story of this was a student who called me out on it. Thankfully, he was joking. But, when I first started creating rubrics, and one of my early ones, said grammar and mechanics, right? I'm teaching English. One of the things I'm grading is grammar and mechanics. And this student came to me and he said, he's looking at the rubric and he said, so could I write my paper in Spanish? Well, nowhere had I specified the paper had to be written in English. Unfortunately, he was kidding. And I said, yes, I was saying, no, you have to write it in, in English. But in my mind, I was thinking, oh no, I didn't say that on the assignment sheet or the rubric or anywhere. So now my favorite phrase in that criterion is grammar, spelling, and mechanics adhere to standard edited American English, So even little things like that where, you realize you left something off. I mean, I've done this before too. One time I created a rubric for a paper and an essay, and I realized that I had put it in the assignment sheet, but I had left out of the rubric, like quoting. Like I said, in the assignment sheet, I said you have to use 3 quotes from source or whatever. On the rubric, I somehow was editing it. My bad. I just left it off, which meant that by the time I went to grade, I had given that out. I told them this is what I'm using. Follow it to the letter of the law, use it as a checklist for your paper. I really couldn't count off for if they didn't quote because it wasn't in the rubric. And so that was just my mistake. But just these little things can really make a huge impact, when you go to grade. So like I said, make sure you're specific, especially about the language you want your papers written in and things like that as you go. All right. Quick little another poll here, just to following along on Nearpod. So which of those tips, just the 4 that we went through, did you find most useful? Maybe it was new to you or whatever for creating effective rubrics. So if you just put that answer in, I'll just give you a couple minutes here. Making sure it still looks good on my end on the phone. So. Silence in here. I know I just threw a lot at you, so Try to decide on that. All right, see, we got some for being specific. Oh, very important one. Some for creating the rubric before the assignment. That is very important. And I see a lot, I think a mistake a lot of people make is not creating it as like before, or at least with the assignment sheet itself. Being specific, yeah. Oh, A and D are taking the cake here, right? Okay, I see a couple for selecting the appropriate amount of criteria. Yeah, you know, criteria is hard, I think, for us because we really do want to assess everything and we'll try to fit that in there. But, you know, when it's overwhelming for the student to do and then overwhelming for you to grade, it's like, is it really as effective? So trying to scale back or keep some consistency is good. So, all right. So it looks like creating the rubric before after the assignment is first. And then, of course, the criteria, as an appropriate amount of criteria, and then being specific are the other sort of two winners here, if you will. So, oh, got another one coming in for D there. So, all right. So now we're like, now A and D are tied. All right. So we got creating it before with the assignment and then being specific in your criteria. And we know that the specificity is important for students as well. So, all right, great. And like nobody selected C. So good for you guys. You didn't make the mistake that I made. You know, you guys are all smarter than that when you started creating rubrics. So, yeah, so here we go. Everybody have a good laugh at Alicia's, you know, first little baby rubric here way back in the day or whatever. And so I'm going to give you a second to look at this because I'm going to have you, we're going to do another collaboration board. I'm going to have you tell me some things that are wrong with this. I mean, there's one glaringly obvious, you know, one here, but I give you just a second to sort of look it over. And I'm going to progress the slide. I do have it on the collaboration board, but it's really hard to see because it's small. So, so just take a quick note of some stuff there and then we'll collaborate and then we're going to look at it together. So, all right. So here's your, as before, collaboration board. And like I said, the images here, you should be able to kind of see. Actually, I think yours shows up in the middle here. You can see it. I'm checking to see, but it's really small. So I know it's hard to see there on yours. But if you just want to type a couple things in here and submit the problem or problems that you saw, just one or two, I'll give you a minute to do that, and we'll analyze it together, and we can all laugh at me because I just created so many problems for myself at the time, didn't even know it. Yeah, too many levels. That's what Chris called me out on. He said, "Oh, and I'll show your names on this one so I can see." Yes, too many levels. Yes, absolutely. So you all, again, you're all smarter than me. You're like, ooh, what a crazy rubric. Too crazy. Too many levels. And yes, to that point, let's see. Let me try to show the student names here so I can see everybody. Yeah, Sandy, great point. Too difficult to judge the difference in the levels, which is where the problem with too many levels comes in. So that's a really great point. We're going to look at that. Yes, Casey, not specific enough. That's fantastic. I do want to look at some of those as well. Some of those things as well. Let me show student name here again. Yes, it definitely does not guide the student. And that's probably because of the levels and then also the criteria need more. Yeah, they need more description as well. Yeah, it's a work in progress. It definitely was a work in progress, you know, which I didn't know at first, you know. So see, I come from trial and error, you know, I learned from that way. All right, fantastic. Yes, you all picked up on the things that, you know, and I thought I had done some good on my nice little rubric here. I was, you know, fresh out of grad school and all that. So, all right, you guys all nailed, I mean, everything that's wrong with this. So we'll just do a quick recap. Way too many levels here, okay? Way too many levels. What is the difference between needs some improvement and needs slight improvement and acceptable, really? I mean, what is the difference between those? I mean, the top four, I get satisfactory, good, excellent, perfect. Okay. Not sure I would use, I've not used perfect ever since this one or whatever, but I mean, like those I can kind of understand. And even at the start, missing and unsatisfactory. Okay, that might be okay. But you get into the need significant work, need some improvement, need slight improvement. What is the difference between these? And then I'm grading a paper having to choose between, do I give the student 5 points or 6 points? I mean, good grief, right? Like that is, you know, on this one criterion there, right? And then, and another thing I caught on this one, you know, after the fact is on my scale, 1 is missing. So if you don't turn in anything at all, you theoretically still get like 10 or 15 points on this or whatever, however many criteria I had, because I said if it's missing, you still get a point. So no matter what, you're still getting points for the essay, even if you don't turn one in. So that's a problem too. So always got to make sure like your lowest level is like at 0, because you want to reserve that right to give them 0 points. If we look at some of the issues here with the criteria descriptions, they all are very vague. And like I said, sometimes you need a little bit of generic terminology to sort of leave yourself some wiggle room in grading. So I know that's probably what I was going for here. And things like, okay, when you get to the thesis, a clear, well-developed thesis that is focused and argumentative. Now, we had talked a lot about that in class, about what it means to be focused and argumentative. So that should have been clear about what that meant. But if you look at the next one, like introduction grabs the reader's attention, and we did talk about that, hooking the reader, and is appropriately constructed for the essay. What does that mean? What does it mean to be appropriately constructed for the essay, right? No details on what exactly that means. It needs to have this, it needs to have, and also this doesn't sort of say anything about the order of where things, should be. And of course, now I have evolved, thank goodness I have evolved, and say things like the thesis needs to be at the end of the introduction, and all of this. Conclusion avoids introducing new ideas. I mean, that one should be, clear to them, effectively ends the essay. Well, what does that mean, right? So this is where it's like, if this is off to a good start, like if someone said it's a work in progress, definitely, but it needs more details for the students to be able to, understand exactly what they should do for each one. All right, so we got one more here we're going to look at, and then so we're going to do the same thing, another collaboration board. Tell me what's wrong with this one. All right, so take a quick look here. And we've noticed the levels are much better, right? So there's a good start there, right? But there's still some problems with this one. So take a quick look. All right, and then let's collaborate and tell me a problem or some problems you see with that particular rubric. And by the way, Chris Hefner, the one that I was talking about, he helped create that one. So I always put this in here because I got to pick on him a little bit too, after he picked on me. So it's my turn to sort of pick on him because, I'm like, well, the one you created isn't perfect either. So go ahead and type in your thoughts you have on that one. He did have the levels right though. I mean, that's fair. He did have the levels right. So Yep, Casey, you're absolutely right. I think this goes too far in the other direction, right? It's too simple. Student doesn't really have direction, and we'll look at it again and look at some of those phrases that are still very vague for a student who is, using their what is highly problematic. Yes, excellent, Pete, fantastic. Needs more clarity. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's exactly right. We'll look at that in a second. The highly problematic phrasing. Because it's either like, I think with it is not present or highly problematic. And yeah, what does that mean or whatever? Yes, it would make it difficult or anything other than A, C, or F. That's absolutely true. And that's a great point. Too, is something to be careful with is when you do your points all the way out. I have seen it before where, sometimes it's like the drop from the excellent category, the first category to like the second one, if you will, is like 20 or 30 points. I'm like, you do realize this drops in like 2 letter grades or whatever the case is. So it is very important to think about how that distribution of points is going to work out to make, because, students are going to get different things on each criteria, right? They're not all going to get excellent, not all going to get good. It's going to be a mixture. So you want to make sure that that's balanced, right? And as Cindy points out, this one has some issues with that. All right. So great points, you guys. We'll look at it real quick. As Pete said, what does highly problematic mean? I don't really know, right? That's unclear there. And we even have some things here. And if we're thinking about this as a freshman, like writing course, these are students who are new to this, right? Even sort of on the support, the points to support topic sentences, all topic sentences are fully supported. I don't know if that's fully clear on what that means. And I know we go over this in class, of course, but, between that and missing some support, it doesn't leave you a lot of room to give detailed feedback, to those students. And so if we look at the points and what Cindy was talking about, it's hard to make anything. It's either an A, C, or F pretty much because, we've got 3 levels here, which we said, okay, that can work, right? The levels, but the point values. So first of all, everything's even, right? So the thesis is worth as much as the introduction. as much as topic sentences. That might be fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that if it works, but that's something you want to think about is like, is everything equal in this paper for this assignment, whatever. So everything's 10 points here. But as soon as you get one thing in the middle category, right? The middle level, if it's a category, if your introduction is clear but not especially engaging, you just dropped 5 points, right? So even if everything else is perfect or excellent or whatever, you lost 5 points on one little thing. So your grade is dropping from a 100 to a 95, so that is a very quick drop. And so very quickly you get a couple, 2 or 3 things in this middle category, which by the way means, I mean, you're doing it somewhat, but that's a 5 point deduction every time. So is this the most equal distribution of points? No, not really. And generally speaking, I'm not, for what I teach, of course, English, usually my stuff is not, everything's not equal. So really that whole, like everything in this, everything is 10 points doesn't work as well for me. That was something I was trying on my crazy, level rubric, like everything was out of 10 points. And what I've learned since then, obviously, is like, yeah, that does not, work as well. So still some vagueness here. And the points value is something very important to keep in mind to see how that's going to be distributed by, by throughout the assignment, right? By the rest of the criteria you have. All right, here's one. We're not going to we won't do the collaboration board on this one. I just put this one in as an example, one kind of quick, it's a fairly decent example. This is a rubric that I use. This is how it looks in D2L. So we're going to look at that next. So this is the inside D2L part of things. And this is what I do for each essay is I collect their an outline, right, as well as their introduction and drafts of their essay as they go. This is for their outline, right? And what I tell them, okay, so if you're trying to give drafts and feedback to students and all that, what I have told them is, listen, I want to get these back to you quickly. Try to get them back within a day so you guys have the feedback and you can go and make changes you need to make, right? Therefore, this rubric is very specific. I mean, if you look at that first criteria there, thesis statement is written in complete sentence form. That's either a yes or no, right? So what I tell them is I'm going through and assessing this very quickly, right? So I can get it back to you. I'm not giving you detailed feedback, right? So every little bit of their essay that I collect, the outline, the draft of their introduction paragraph, I usually collect one body paragraph to pick one and submit that. I grade it using this rubric. And that's the only feedback they get, so they either know their thesis statement is either yes, no, or somewhat, right? And notice how specific each of the criteria is here, thesis statement offers a clear opinion about Hamlet. This is when they do their Hamlet essay. So it's either yes, no, and I leave myself that somewhat, it's sort of like an in the middle thing. This is only out of 10 points. It's a small stakes assignment, but this saves me from having to give them full-fledged feedback on their work, because I'm like, guys, I don't have time to do that. But the rubric, and you're going to get this feedback in D2L, the rubric is going to tell you exactly what it is that where you went wrong, right? And they see their score on this and it's given as a percentage. And so they see that 60% and they go, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? And that's a good thing. Actually, I want them to go and look at this and pay attention and look at their draft and go, why, my thesis statement, what's not clear about my argument? They can come ask me, right? That's a great chance for them to reach out or ask me in class. We can go back over things. That's fine. But this saves me from having to try and collect drafts and give them feedback and then collect final draft and give them feedback. And that is so time consuming. And then of course, sometimes it overwhelms them with the amount of feedback. This is a really quick, like, here's everything that, we have, right? So here's everything I'm grading on. Yes, no, or somewhat. And this is back to Chris's thing. You're either doing it, you're kind of doing it, or you're not doing it. And then they get their score, and that lets them know to go look at, go review the rubric in detail. All right. So we've only got a few minutes left. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to hop on over to D2L here. So we were going to do a couple other things talking about what type of rubric we want to create for this, but I'm just going to show you guys the rubrics tool really quickly and sort of how it all works. Some of you may have used this before, it's in D2L as part of the, just the general package or whatever. So if you have D2L, you have this tool. And like I said, every LMS has one to some extent. So This is just a really good way to assess things within the platform, gives them feedback within the platform, especially helpful, obviously, for online classes, but also for face-to-face classes. I mean, I don't collect anything via paper anymore. I stopped doing that years ago as soon as I kind of discovered all these tools. Even for face-to-face, they submit it to the Dropbox, right? I grade it in there. They get their grade, they get their feedback. I do annotations in there, so they get everything done through the through D2L here. So I'm just going to, well, actually, I tell you what, I'm going to take that back. Let me show you, we're going to reverse engineer this a little bit. Let me hop into the grades area here and show you guys what it looks like from the student view. This is my fake class, so, you know, don't have to worry about any FERPA or anything, because this is all members of my team right here. So including Chris, who I was talking about a little while ago. But so if I come in here, I'm going to use Chris Hyde as an example. If I come in here and preview this, so we're going to see, hopefully you guys can still see this, see what the student sees here. So I hope y'all can see this pop-up window, because I know sometimes that's weird with screen sharing. But in this window, if we preview it, what we see here is that on quiz 4, he's got some overall feedback. And then there's a link here that says view graded rubric. So if he clicks this rubric, it's exactly what he sees. It's going to show him on, and this was an exercise they did where they answered 6 questions. On question 1, he got right, excellent, 7 points, and you know it was answered thoroughly. That's the description. And here's the feedback, right? So criterion feedback, answered thoroughly with relevant and detailed examples and explanations. He can see on question 2, he didn't do as well, right? He only got 6 points on that one. And it says, you know, and this is still a little bit vague, right? Additional details and stuff are needed. And this was intentional on my part, because this is a rubric I use for a few assignments. So I wanted to make it kind of generic, so I didn't have to change a ton on it, because it is just answering a few questions out of the book. But very quickly at a glance, he can see, oh, question 4 is my worst one. What did I do wrong on it? Let me go look at it. Let me ask her or whatever. So he can come ask me, you know, and that kind of thing. So they can see all their feedback, all their scores are over here. They get all that. And then at the bottom, they see their overall score. So this is what the student sees. And this is all within the grade book, which I find really important, because a lot of students, you know, don't always know to go back to the Dropbox folder, or to go back to, you know, the quiz tool or the discussion board or whatever to see the details. So this way it's right there in the grade book, and it just takes them to that rubric without you having to sort of share it in any specific way or tell them to go somewhere else to do it. So if we come in here to the rubrics, we'll do just a kind of real quick, you know, sample one here. So if I go to new rubric, so, you know, we'll title it here. Let's see, we'll just do presentation. We'll make some things up here. Notice in D2L, you can change this from analytic to holistic. So we talked briefly about that. Holistic means it's not really for points. It's just for, you know, you want to tell them how they're doing on something. I don't see that used very often, but it's good to know it's there, because there may be some of you have a specific purpose for that. Like I said, even for drafts, I prefer just to give points, because I feel it like means more to them. But I mean, it is there as an option for you. Points here, if you don't want everything to be equal, you're going to want to change this to custom points. So that's how we get it to how each criterion has a different point value on it there. So, and then of course we have the levels here. And like I said, I pretty much stick with, you know, excellent, good, I usually do satisfactory, and then maybe unsatisfactory, right? And then what I try to do in terms of points, because we were talking about, right, the distribution and how important that is, I try to basically do the excellent is like the most you can get, right? That's top, whatever. The good, I try to look as like it's a B, you know? So I try to make sure if everyone gets a good, you know, all the way down, that their final grade is a B, you know? And I know that gives you some range there. Sometimes I'm like, okay, it adds up to like 83 or 86. That's fine, you know, because if they get all of them, that's the grade they would get. And then of course, satisfactory, I try to do is like a C, and make sure that that works out per criterion, as well as for the overall levels there. If you need to add levels, you can do that here very easily, right? There's a new level for you, and you can also delete levels. So if you decide, you know what, nope, I only want 3, you can delete levels very easily as well. And then here's the criterion where you put in, I said this was for a presentation, so we'll say, you know, eye contact, right? So that's where you'd put in, like, these are the things I'm looking for. And this is where, and this is important to note here. Okay, so there are two different boxes, or typing boxes. You can use HTML here on this rubric builder. This first one here, this is going to be your description of the criterion for this. So if we wanted to explain what eye contact exactly means, what the expectations are for each level, this is where we do that. Okay, students see that on the rubric. So when they go to look at it, you share it with them, you attach it to the assignment. And what's really great, by the way, when you attach this to a Dropbox assignment, actually any tool in D2L, but especially the Dropbox, when they go in to submit their work, they see that before they even get to the add file, submit button. So it basically forces them to scroll past it. So, they saw it, right? It was there and that they saw it and all of that. So we put the description here. The feedback is what you want. So if you say, okay, anyone who gets an excellent on eye contact when I grade it, this is the feedback I want them to see, right? So you type in whatever you want them to see as their feedback there. They do not see this until you grade and publish their assignment, their work or whatever, their grade. So, this is something that when it's published, when it goes to the grade book, it looks like you took all of this time to come in here and say, great job, work on this or whatever. They don't know that you did all that on the front end of things in the rubric. To them, it looks personal. And just as a note, when you do go into grade, you can still make changes to this feedback if you need to. So if you want to add something to it, or, because maybe you want to be generic here, but when you get to it, you say, yeah, you know what, work on your comma splices or whatever. You can do that at the grading level as well. But this gives you a great starting point. And quite frankly, if someone gets excellent on something, I don't have a lot of feedback to give them. They did a great job, so that may be all I want them to see. And then, like I said, they don't know that I did this all on the front end. It looks like you took the time to type that in for them when you graded their work. So it's really a great way to give them feedback without having to type the same thing over and over again as we feel like we're always doing. All right, and I know we're kind of out of time, but you can change the point values here, right? As you go, it'll change it over here for you. You add your criterion here, right? So you can add it, or you can add more as you need to. And then of course you can delete criterion as well. If you just click there and delete row, it'll get rid of that for you. And so it does take some time here, obviously, to build out the entire rubric. But once you do, you can attach it anywhere in D2L. So you can attach it to the Dropbox. I see that very regularly, right, for written assignments. You can also attach it to a discussion board. So you can grade discussions, right from the discussion board there. And then another cool thing is you can attach it to the any grade item. So it doesn't even have to be a specific tool in D2L. Maybe you're doing an in-class presentation and you're doing it, grading it in class. You can attach it to the grade item. You're not even collecting anything for it, and you can grade it right from there as well. Last thing I'll mention before we wrap up here, because I know I'm over time, but the overall score here is what you're saying here is overall, if they, and again, I usually use normal grading, if they score a 90 or higher, that's cumulatively, right? So that's for all of these things that I've graded. If they score that or higher, then they get excellent, and you can leave some overall feedback for them here as well. And then just as like an FYI, there are some different options you have down here. I don't usually mess with many of these. I'm fine with the rubric being visible to students because I want them to see how they're being graded. But you do have some things here, like if you want to hide it until you finish it or something like that, you can do that. But like I said, and then all you have to do when you go to an assignment, go to the Dropbox or whatever, you'll see a button, usually on the assessment tab or similar, that says, add rubric, and then that's where you add it. And then when you go to grade it, the rubric is right there for you to fill out. So, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up here. I know I didn't leave a ton of time for questions because we're running out of time, but I will. Let me see if I can skip here just to the last one. So you have my contact information up here. So you should see that if you're still following along, you should see that on your device as well. Please, because I know we didn't get to look at all the details of the D2L piece of things, but I'm more than happy to work with you on this. If you want to reach out to me, shoot me an email. Then we can set up a time to meet and sort of walk through this in more detail. Or I've got some handouts I can send you as well. And actually, on that note, we have a SharePoint site that we will be sending out to everyone that has our PowerPoints, handouts, all of that stuff. So you will have access to this. And in there, I have put this PowerPoint as well as another one because I did this as a poster presentation one time. So it's very, very detailed and all the things we went over. So that one's going to be in that SharePoint site as well. And it actually explains all the things we went through with the tips and all of that, much more details. You're welcome to take a look at that. And it's got some screenshots of the rubrics tool also. But yeah, so if you have any questions, like I said, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Very happy to help you with. I love rubrics. I push them on all of our faculty here because I just think they are the greatest things for grading. So please definitely just reach out to me if you have any questions at all. All right, I was looking at the chat here real quick, so we wrap up. Yeah, okay, so great. So a couple of you asked about getting copies of it. And like I said, we've got a SharePoint site. I'm not sure when that exactly will be sent out, maybe at the end of the day or whatever. We're also recording everything too. So we'll make sure we get all of that to you as well. And yeah, so just reach out to me if you have any additional questions. So thank you everybody for joining today. I will go ahead and wrap us up. I'll go ahead and stop the recording here.